You're good to go whenever you like.
Okay, thank you. It's November 10th, 2021 GBOS special meeting, 5 p.m. via Microsoft Teams. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors, its committees and subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meetings Act as found in Alaska Statute 44.62.310 and Anchorage Municipal Code 1.25 Public Meetings. The Girdwood Board of Supervisors operates under the Girdwood Public Meeting Standards of Conduct. I'll call the meeting to order at 5:04 p.m. I am Brianna Sullivan, co-chair of GBOS, Parks and Recreation and Cemetery Advisor. Mike? Mike, we can't hear you yet for roll call.
Right, that should work. Mike Edgington, co-chair and land use supervisor.
Jennifer?
Jennifer Wingard, public safety.
Amanda?
Amanda Sassy, road supervisor.
And Guy?
Guy Wade, fire department advisor.
Thank you. Are there any disclosures? Does any board members have any disclosures for tonight?
I might. I'm not sure if it's going to come into play or not, but I am close friends and know a little bit about the personal situation of the homeowner on Loveland.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer, for that. I personally don't see that as a conflict for today's meeting. Any other disclosures? Okay, for other people on the call, could we start with our representatives? I see Senator Holland.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, Senator Holland, Alaska State Senate District N, soon to be District E, but still Girdwood's representative in the Senate.
Great. Thank you, Senator Holland, for being here. I see John Weddleton.
Hi, yeah, I can be here for a little bit. We have a meeting at 6, so I'm going to have to bolt in 30 or 40 minutes, but I'll hang on as long as you can.
Okay. Thank you, John. Let's see. I see a couple of phone numbers and then a few other people on the call. So if others could identify themselves, please go ahead.
Good evening. The phone number calling from 575-4184 is Christina Hendrickson. Thank you.
884. Thank you, Christina. And the phone number 63 while we're doing phone numbers. Last 2 digits.
Hi, it's Michelle Weston driving the ambulance right now in Anchorage.
Thank you, Michelle Weston. Okay, and Stefan?
Yes, hi, Stefan Saldana, member of the public.
Thank you, Stefan. Okay, staff, is there anything I'm missing so far?
No, I'll just point out that both Margaret and I are here, and other staff would be Maury Robinson from Public Works Administration, and then Lance Wilbur, Director of Public Works.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Saw Lance there too. All right. Agenda revisions and approval, November 10th, 2021 special meeting. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Move to approve.
Guy Wade, a second.
Any oppositions? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Announcements. The Public is encouraged to ask to ask questions and provide comment. Please raise your hand and wait to be acknowledged. To help discussion stay productive, please direct your comments to the board rather than other members of the public and keep your comments focused on the business under discussion. Please be respectful of everyone's opinions. GBOS committees, trails, land use, public safety, and cemetery will hold officer elections at their first regular meetings in the new year. Election for GBOS seat C, as in Charlie, will be on the GVSA ballot in April, filing January 14th through January 31st. We'll start with the business today. Number 1, discuss damage and status of repairs related to the fall storm. Who would like to start? Kyle or Mike?
I can go if you like.
Okay.
This is the first chance with the board being together to discuss the damages we had from the recent rainstorm that brought a total of 17 inches in continuous rain over the Halloween weekend, starting from that Friday going through basically Tuesday, the following Tuesday. And during the center of that storm, we had a significant period of a half an inch of rain for about 12 hours straight, every hour, half an inch, which led to increased water levels, then eventually into minor flood stage, and definitely caused some significant issues where we, on some of our residential streets, and then on our industrial road, Ruan Road, down to the industrial park and the AU treatment facility. And that road was the most significant of everything, where it washed out and was completely cut off the industrial park down there. Since then, we have done repairs in 5 different areas. Actually, I should say in 4 different areas, and we have 1 area still remaining. But the most significant one being Ruan, we are just about done. They are putting on the final layer of wrap as we speak, and they're trying to get that thing wrapped up tonight, because we have a call for about 6 inches of snow tonight. So we won't have the toe slopes, the side hills done, but we can work through that even after the snow comes, because that's going to be mostly riprap they're putting in there to stabilize that hillside. But they will probably have both pipes flowing tonight and a road surface on there so that we can maintain it and get it open to the public for the use of the transfer station, and then regular operations for the AWU plant once again. So Echo Ridge has been completed. That was probably the second most significant damage up there, where we lost the entire roadbed and it washed out, along with the drainage ditches. That was all rebuilt in a matter of 3 to 4 days. And we upsized the culverts. We lined the ditches with new riprap that locks in really well. And it's probably the best it's been up there in years. So we feel that it's really set for the next storm, and should be able to handle it better coming forward if we get something like that again. Hopefully not for a while. Loveland is the other area that's completely done. We were able to replace the culvert there that caused all the issues on that street. That culvert was on private property. We did work with the private property owner to allow us to get in there and replace it in a timely manner, and also at the same time develop it as a fish passage, which it wasn't before. So the Fish and Game were pleased with that effort, and that is looking good. The long-term fix for that will be repairing, probably establishing an easement with a property owner to get that fixed, so that we can maintain it and fix it for the future, instead of depending on the private property owner. Since it's so close to the right of way, and it is so, as it showed, it has an effect on the neighborhood if not maintained properly. The other areas is the 2 areas that we probably still need to work on is Crystal Mountain. We have some culverts over there that are plugged. They do flow, but once the flow gets high enough, they do not work. So we need to get there and start digging those out. They were lower priority as compared to Ruane. So we need to get back there and address those. That'll probably take about a day's worth of work over there. And out at the end of Alberg Road at the 5K parking lot, we need to get in there. Fish and Game gave us a permit to dig out that creek and get the channel deep again. We're really worried about overflow and icing this winter if we don't address it, and the icing moving into the parking lot and possibly eroding at the banks there, which are already significantly damaged. So we want to get in there and try to address some of that, at least get that channel dug out so that the water stays there for the winter and works that way. So that's sort of an overrun. The crews have been working nonstop, basically, taking nights off. They actually took up rooms here at the hotel and started Sunday of the storm, and probably will be working through the rest of this week into Friday to button things up for the winter. We'll just see what the snow does. At the same time, we have to jump into snow removal again and sanding, and so the contractor is trying to switch their equipment back to snow removal. They had to pull all the snow removal chains and special blades off, and then flip back to construction mode. So I really respect all the hard work that Western has done. This is our first 6 months with them, and their first showing has been great, and they've been really dedicated to get this project done. And so the next big hurdle, I think, with them is to figure out the billing and the expenses, and we will start seeing some of them. They're going to break everything down according to project area, as I described, and so we can see the expenses associated with that, and we'll probably be working with them just to really justify some costs and things like that as they come in, and make sure that we're paying appropriately for what was completed and done. So that's where we stand at this point, and that's sort of a quick summary of where we've been.
Thank you, Kyle, and thank you for all of the hard work and documenting of everything and communicating. Is anyone else up for discussing number 1?
Sure, I've got a couple of questions and observations.
Thank you, Mike.
First of all, I completely agree with Kyle about how great Western have been. I've had a few conversations with Paul, who sort of managed that operation, and he's been extremely helpful. And he's helped explain things to me because I don't understand, but he's been very patient, and particularly explained the complexities about replacing the culverts and dealing with a temporary road that then had to be taken out again so AWU could be serviced when they had a sludge event, I suppose, when they had to remove the sludge from the waste treatment plant on Monday. And the other thing I want to say as well is I think it's been great cooperation from the resort. We've noticed, obviously, one of the big vulnerabilities is all of our equipment was the wrong side of the hole in the road. So having the day lodge acting as a sort of staging area and a maintenance yard was just invaluable.
Thank you, Mike. I agree. Any other comments on number 1?
I've got one more question for Kyle. Can you say a little bit more about what work was actually required at Rouen? Because there was a lot more to it than I initially thought.
So the cause of the accident, or the road failure there, was that we had a large cottonwood come down and it plugged one of the 2 culverts there. Those culverts, as we came to learn from our hydrologist, were already undersized. So when that one culvert got plugged and then all that flow came through there, it went from a whirlpool method where it whirlpools down to the 2 culverts and then shoots out, and turned into like a rototiller method. So the creek just smashing against it just eroded the whole road, and it washed out from underneath the asphalt and then eventually collapsed. When it did that, it buckled the remaining culvert that was working, and fortunately, what it did is when it buckled it, it put that culvert right up underneath the sewer line there. So between the road and the top of the culverts, there's a sewer line that runs down there and goes to the treatment plant. And so it supported that sewer line. So for us, the complexity really started with the sewer line and giving that adequate support so that we could get in there and start removing all the material. So we brought brought in a steel beam, and that was kind of a delay for us in the project because it took longer than we expected to get the steel beam. But they came in, set up the steel beam, and then cradled the sewer line, and then added reinforcing joints where the pipe connects in the different segments. And so we were going with the original plan that we could replace just one pipe because we thought the pipe that did get plugged, we were able to pull the log out of it. We thought we could still use that pipe and then put a 60-inch culvert in and then get the road reopened. Thinking if we'd had that option, it would probably only take us 2 days to reopen the road. But what we discovered on Saturday morning was that there was quite a leak coming out of the other pipe. And there was quite concern that that pipe had been damaged or had been compromised since we had uncovered it. So the decision from the hydraulicist and the engineer was to replace both pipes. And so it became basically a 3-step process for us. We put one pipe in. We had that pipe in by Saturday night, backfilled to top of pipe. And then Sunday, they started building a temporary road because the AWU had a sludge buildup. And what they do is when they treat, they end up producing sludge and it goes into a holding bay. And then eventually a pumper truck comes and pumps it out and relieves them of the sludge. And then and that happens weekly, every 7 days. They call it the 7-day plan. And so for Monday, in order to keep us moving, and we did see this weather coming, we knew we had to get them in there Monday. Normally it comes on Tuesday, but we called from, so they built the temporary road 1 lane in, which meant we had to bring it up to grade so the pumper truck could confidently go across it without being concerned about falling. And so they got in there, they pumped it. We allowed for all the tenants of the industrial park to get in and either bring equipment in or take equipment out, which they all did. And then we had to start digging again because we had to go put that second pipe in. So Monday afternoon, 3 o'clock, they started digging. By noon on Tuesday, they had that second pipe in, and by last night, they had it backfilled to top of pipe. And then today, they backfilled the road completely, embedded the sewer line, covered it with insulation. We called Instar back out. Instar reestablished the main line to the AWU treatment plant. As I said, the road now is covered back over and hopefully to grade at any time now.
Thanks, Kyle. I think that's going to be helpful when we discuss the cost and why our initial estimates were a little bit off, a lot off.
Sure.
Yes, thank you, Kyle. Are there any other questions from the board?
This is Guy. I have a question. What I don't know if I caught it there. The pipe diameters for the 2 that went in and the 2 that were destroyed, are they the same or are they bigger pipes?
So what we had before were oblong pipes. I think they were 46 wide or 52 wide by maybe 46 tall. What we've gone to is a 60-inch pipe, 80 feet long, 2 of those. And so now they're round, and they do increase our capacity a little bit. But our hydrologist has said that it's not what we need to deal with these storms that seem to come more often. And really, to also, if we get another one of the pipes plugged, it just won't hold. And so, yeah, what's in there are brand new pipes. They look great. They're built like they could be there for a while, but they're still undersized for what the creek needs during big flood events.
Follow up, maybe we'll talk about it on our options for repairs. Is there discussion for fish passage in that?
Yes, and that's a requirement that the Fish and Game Department would like to see. The previous pipes in there weren't adequate for fish passage, just too much velocity at all times for the fish to get up through them. They didn't have a natural bed to them either, which is ideal for fish passage with having a gravel bottom. So what's really been kicked around in discussions with the engineering team is a box culvert to go in there, which would be wide and big. And, you know, if we had a log come down like that, it wouldn't restrict flow too much. The culvert should still work because it would probably be oversized. If you've ever been out on the Alberg extension, there's a great example of a box culvert out there. It's the last big culvert you cross before you get to the 5K parking lot. And it would be something very similar to that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Actually, we could probably discuss where we think the costs of the emergency repairs are now, and then have item 2 as how we pay for it. I think that might make sense, if the chair agrees.
I agree. Thank you, Mike, for guiding that.
At this point, we're roughly estimating repairs possibly around 700,000, just due to the complexity of the Ruan fix. We had originally estimated only need one pipe there, and we're going to use a shorter pipe, and we're only going to put in a narrow 2-lane road until we could come back next spring and do a rebuild. But identifying the fact that we don't really have, recognizing the fact that we haven't identified money for a full replacement on the Ruan, that's why we went with the 2 60-inch pipes at 80 feet for now, until we can identify money to rebuild that section properly.
And that covers, just to confirm, Kyle, that covers all the work we've done so far and the work that's anticipated over the next week or 2.
Correct. Yes. So that'd be all for the residential areas and Ruan that we've addressed, and items that we probably still need to address. And then with that includes all the trucking of material in. We had quite a bit, since we didn't have access to our stockpiles down there, and we still wouldn't need material even if we had our access to our stockpile of material. We had to truck all the material in and establish a temporary street maintenance yard up in the Alyeska Day Lodge. And so that's anything from class riprap class 1 through 4 to suitable fill and leveling course and wrap, recycled asphalt for repairing all the roads, plus the pipe that we needed. Fortunately, street maintenance had pipe for us, but we'll need to reimburse them for that pipe. And then we had to purchase a bunch of pipe for Echo Ridge and over on Loveland.
And one final thing is, obviously, this is all the damage we've identified. There are almost certainly things going on in parts of the systems that, in other culverts and other places that we haven't identified. So I think there's some risk we might find there's some other things we discover either during the winter and spring.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, especially with our trail system, we have actually a inventory going on trail repair that looks like it needs to be addressed in the spring.
So effectively, the costs associated with this event start at 700,000, plus the actual permanent replacement of Ruan. And do we have an approximate number for that, for the permanent replacement of Ruan? I know it will depend on the engineering, but just a ballpark figure.
No, on the Ruan repair or the future repair.
The permanent replacement as opposed to the temporary repair we have now.
Yeah, it's probably somewhere in the range of $1.5 to $2 million. Right. Maybe more.
Okay. So we have the rough estimates of current and projected repairs plus unknown. And now we need to probably go into reviewing the options for covering the cost of repairs, where we go from here for number 2 on business.
So what we're most likely going to do in the immediate future to pay for these repairs that we've completed, is we're going to tap into the Gerwood Service Area Emergency Fund. And with that, you know, Gerwood has designated funds that we keep separate from our operating and capital budget. And those designated funds do two things. One, it covers our portion of the bond rating. So Gerwood has a certain amount of money set aside that helps with the municipality in whole's bond rating and reserves. And then the other portion is a emergency capital fund that we have set aside. And that fund has about 612,000 in it. And so it's sitting here for events like this, you know, and you know, I've been here 10 years and we've never even considered touching it, but I think we're to an event where that needs to be considered too, in order for us to make immediate payment back to our contractors and vendors who've supplied us for this event. The other areas for funding that we have is 109,000 with our road capital account. And then area-wide project management and engineering has identified they have 163,000 in a bridge dam fund that can be used for the RUAN repair as it's suitable and relates to the same things that funds are set aside for. So that's area-wide funding that's available to the service area. So in all, in response to the flood, liquid, you know, we would definitely need assembly approvals to move some of this money around. You know, we have about $1.1 million available to respond and pay for our expenses related to this event. What that will mean is that when we do tap that fund, we will, the service area will need to determine how to replenish it for the next event down the road, which we hope is not for a long time, but we need to build that back up for the group or for the service area. So that's where we stand right now with it. We will most likely avoid trying to use our operating expenses right now because we still have snow plowing and sanding to do. But this is basically standing.
Mike, your hand's up. Go ahead.
Yeah. So could you break that 1.1 million down again? I heard 600,000 is our emergency fund. Correct. Is that the bond? That's not the bond reserve, correct? That's actually emergency fund, or does it include the bond reserve?
No, that is emergency fund. So that's a standalone emergency fund that the service area maintains. Okay. One thing I didn't mention, I forgot to mention this, was we have undesignated funds. So these are funds. That's the bit I was missing. That we don't have designated to anything, and we have 298,000 there. We have road capital fund, and these are the funds that we set aside. You know, we make the move from each year from operating, and we put these into the capital fund. And we slowly build. We just recently used a good portion of this fund to repave Alberg, and we have 109,000 left in that account right now. And then, and as I said, PM&E identified this bridge and dam fund, which has 163,000 that we could use towards the repairs here.
Okay. Perhaps Lance can give us more details about the bridge and dam fund. But is that guaranteed reimbursement, or is that something we may qualify for?
I believe it's liquid, so the city can use it to pay invoices with.
Okay, so what I'm basically hearing then is whatever the costs end up being, 160,000 would come from the municipality and the rest would come from Gerwood taxpayers, and we would have to replenish that soon, and it would effectively wipe out any projects we have, all the savings we have for projects. So, as I know Kyle has explained many times, and I'm sure most people are aware, we don't bond for capital. capital projects in Girdwood because we never get the bonds. They're voted down typically by the wider municipality, even though we are paying for them by ourselves. So the policy we've used over the last many years is to save the money first, and then potentially get grants where we can, and then fill in any gaps with other types of lending. But mostly we save first, so this will wipe out pretty much all of our savings, our emergency reserve, and stop projects for a number of years, including the projects we've identified that actually address exactly this kind of a problem. So one of the things we have on our capital improvement plan was to do a drainage study, which we need even more urgently. And the other thing was to replace the culverts along Alyeska Creek. And we were very lucky. We really got away with very surprisingly well in this storm, because given the amount of water, so much of it fell as snow higher up, that a lot of that water didn't go straight into the drainage systems. If it had have done, especially on Alyeska, there's a good chance we'd have lost at least one of the culverts and there'd have been house flooding. So we would have to put that project off for a number of years. And I think my concern is the message we're getting. The message we got at the very beginning at the event was the municipality wanted to help and declare an emergency, etc., and find other ways of reimbursing some of these costs. And then in a newspaper article, we discovered that wasn't the plan suddenly. And I definitely haven't seen any explanation as to why. And it concerns me a bit that the message we're getting now is you're on your own. So, I'd very much like to hear other people on the board, their opinions on this, and the public.
Thank you, Mike. I also am concerned that for our community, that projects that have been organized and planned well ahead of time by Kyle and staff and past board members are subject to being put off for an unknown amount of time and years, because we have to, if we had to spend money that's in savings on one storm, and it's apparent that a lot of drainage and culverts need to be upgraded closer up to the valley, the base of all the mountains here. So I'm curious to hear from municipality why we haven't heard if there's going to be a declaration of emergency, and if they're just not getting to us in the week after the storm. Are there any other comments from the board?
Yeah, this is Guy. Have we reached out as a board to the municipality to understand that better?
We have individually. I have. I said we had the municipal manager's been down a couple of times, and definitely when at the beginning of the event on the Sunday, we were assured we'd get all the help we needed. And then, as I said, the newspaper article came out and said the mayor had made a different decision, but I never got an explanation.
Jennifer?
We've made no formal action. We'd have to have this. We would have to meet together to decide on a formal action.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you, Mike. And yes, Guy, this is the opportunity for us to formally decide what step to take next. Anything else, Guy?
Yeah. So that funding, is that coming straight out of the municipality's budget, or are we talking federal funding? Where exactly would those funds come from? Do we know yet, or is that something we need to look into?
I think if you don't mind me answering that, Chair.
Go ahead, Mike.
At the moment, the money comes from us. It's all coming from Girdwood taxpayers, except for the 163,000 that is from the previously bonded amount. So except for the 163, all of it is coming from us, and there is no money identified. Obviously, we cannot afford, but we don't have $1.5 million lying around. We cannot afford the permanent fix. So we'd have to. There's no money identified for that at all yet. What we would be asking for, I think, is a state level declaration. And my understanding from talking to a couple of other communities and people who've been in this position in the past in municipalities is that opens up some state level reimbursement through the municipality, but it'd be money from the state.
Thank you, Mike, for clarifying and answering that question. Jennifer, please go ahead.
Sorry, thanks. I've had a number of people ask me questions about this that I haven't been sure how to answer. And one of them is, Mike, you said that the municipal manager had been down numerous times, but in the end, the decision is made by the mayor, not the municipal manager, if I'm understanding correctly.
I believe so, yes. I mean, the municipal manager works for the mayor.
Right, right. And so has anybody reached out directly to the mayor then?
I think that would be probably something we should do as a board rather than the individuals, if we're going to do that.
Okay, okay.
I mean, typically our communication is through the municipal manager. Sorry, Jennifer.
No, go ahead. So
I was going to say, typically our communication is through the municipal manager. It's typically our first point of contact, or directors of the departments.
Correct. But in this particular case, we kind of heard one thing from the municipal manager, and then a decision was made that seemed very different from what we had been hearing, if I'm understanding right.
To be very specific, we got one message from the municipal manager, and then we got a very different message printed in the newspaper from the mayor's spokesperson. I still haven't heard anything.
That's what I thought. Okay. And then the other question, I guess I'm not quite clear on how this works, is do we need that declaration from the mayor in order to appeal for state funds?
I don't know if anyone else can answer this. I got some advice on this, which was no, there is no legal requirement for the municipality to ask for a state declaration. That's a decision by the governor themselves. And there's no statutory requirement. I don't know if in practice it would work if the municipality didn't ask for it or indeed opposed it. I don't know. But I think from a statutory point of view, there's no requirement for the municipality to ask for a declaration. It can be done directly from the state level. But again, somebody else may have better information. Someone else on the call may have better information than I have.
This is Guy. I have one more question. Do we know how Cooper Landing is funding their issues down there? Or
Guy, I could answer only part of that. This is Brianna. I talked to Peter Machechi, and his response about the landslide on the highway was that it's state highway, it's DOT. And so that was the two entities that took care of it, essentially, is how I understood his comment.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone else on the call have an answer for the previous question or suggestion? Go ahead, Mike.
Not to answer that, but the question that Guy asked just reminded me of one other piece of information. Although it's not strictly our responsibility because it's out of the service area, there was also quite a bit of damage to Crow Creek Road, and there were some emergency repairs done by the residents of Crow Creek, and then I believe DOT has went up and actually did some fixes as well. So I think they believe their road is okay for winter use at least, but they'll probably have to do something in the spring. And then there's no funding obviously associated to that. Typically all the winter maintenance is done by a non-profit, which members of the Upper Crow Creek community contribute to. But that's another piece of damage of our infrastructure in the valley, although it's strictly outside the service area responsibility. But that effectively DOT helped with that.
Right. Thank you for bringing that up and clarifying. I failed to bring that one up. Well, I'm wondering if we would write a separate letter to the governor and then another letter to the municipality. Would that be not the best course of action to ask for FEMA funding? We need to decide what the will of the board is. Mike.
Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but
Oh,
actually,
and
Jerry,
then-
do you have a comment
Yeah.
first? I'll let Jerry
Jerry.
go first if he wishes.
Jerry Fox, thanks for being here.
Yeah, I have a question, and again, this emergency declaration. Does Lance Wilbur, you're on the line, do you have any idea who would make that declaration?
Yes. Thanks, Jerry. No, actually, I don't. I have a similar sort of thought processes that Mike have, but I too would want to confirm it. I have never been involved in a situation where a declaration was declared, so my knowledge of how to do it and when it's done and who is involved is pretty limited right now.
Okay, so yeah, that's the first thing, is to learn more about how to, the declaration of emergency is, called, who calls it, whether it's the mayor, whether the assembly, whether the state. But, Brianna said FEMA, I think it would be state funding. It wouldn't be federal funding. Is that correct? I believe, Mike?
That's my understanding, yes. I don't think this would rise to a FEMA level disaster. The earthquake did, and obviously COVID did, but I don't believe this would be. But I think it probably would at the state level. I think definitely the anecdotes I've heard is that once it exceeds $1 million of damage from a single event, it's typically the area where a state disaster would be declared. And we're obviously, including replacement, we're well above that.
Madam Chair, this is Christina Hendrickson. Are you taking comments from the public, since I just heard Mr. Fox speak up?
Yes, Christina, and I just saw his hand, and I'm sorry I didn't go for phone hands yet. We have one more, and if Jennifer's ready or not, I could have Christina. Jennifer, would you like to go or go to Christina?
Sure, Christina is fine.
Okay, Christina, please go ahead.
Great, thanks, Brianna. I really appreciate it. So a couple of observations and then a question. First off, really appreciate M&O and Public Works being on the phone after hours right now. The Public Works Director is a former OMB director, so he's really got the handle on finance. And what I heard articulated by our manager, Kyle Kelly, was that not only does our subcontractor, Weston, have all of the documentation for each of the different areas that have been disturbed, going to have the appropriate calculations for each one of those. So if we did need to piecemeal them rather than putting them all into one, that the documentation is there for any of those relief programs that we might be able to tap into. The second thing that I've heard is that our state representatives have been involved. Roger Holland's been down, and I know that Kaufman has been alerted to, but hasn't yet made a site visit. So with our state representatives, we should be in concert with their communiques to the Senate and the House, especially if Brianna has had time with Peter Machicki to discuss this as it relates to what's going on in his district, so that we can have some standing when going to the governor for anything at the state level. That would be my advice to the board. The third thing that I'd like to point out is that not very many people in Girdwood participate in our summertime budget meetings. Unfortunately, they are held during the July-August period, where there's like the people that are on GBOS and like maybe two other people and Margaret and Kyle on. So not a lot of our constituents and our taxpayers understand that in order to fund our emergency fund, we take money from each of our different service area departments. So Parks and Rec is going to take X amount of money out of their budget to put into those funds, and so on and so forth. And if we have trails and that are being overutilized right now because other trails are impassable, then that's going to exacerbate our current trail conditions and require additional work next year. And our Parks and Recs budget is very strained, as we've noted as a community that a lot more outdoor recreation has occurred, and whereas that's a lot of really great outdoor recreation economy, it doesn't necessarily translate into property taxes that pay for that bill going forward. And having done tree work on 3 different properties today with our business, I can say that the ground is still not frozen and quite malleable. And so we're going to continue to see more erosion on our trails as we go through the freeze-thaw cycle of the November, December that we're used to. The other thing that I want to point out too, related to that for the M&O folks on the phone and the Public Works listening, because I know Lance takes really great notes, is that we have a lot of bootstrapping that we've done for our own Public Works projects. Kyle has made it like his mission in life to replace culverts in Girdwood. And he's got a checklist that he's gone through from a watershed perspective, which has been really wonderfully well received by the community and has done so much to better the hydraulic flow within our streets. But it's still not enough. Hence the reason we still need that hydraulic flow as it relates to climate change. We're seeing this all throughout the rail belt. The railroad is constantly replacing culverts thanks to the glacial melt and the scouring along the alluvial fans, which we are an alluvial fan there in Girdwood. So the final thing that I would like to put out there is a question about who was the hydrologist that A, approved those original culverts going in on Route 1, and is that the same hydrologist or is that different? Can you give the names of who approved the one that went in when the GIP and everything was redone a couple of years ago versus who has been on site coaching you now? And that's to Kyle. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Kyle, could you answer that one?
Yeah, I don't know who the hydrologist was. Those culverts are about 25 years old. They weren't replaced when that road surface was upgraded. So we actually had a difficult time finding the drawings on them. But the hydrologist we've been working with is Bill Spencer, a very well-respected hydrologist from HDR. He actually did the last drainage study for Girdwood. And we've been working with him closely for many years for advice and input on different things that we do.
Wonderful. Madam Chair, may I have a follow-up?
Yes. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So for the clarification of those on the phone, as a former HDR consultant, Bill Spencer's like the best. Him and Max Selway, anything that comes out of their mouth, I follow. They have such a comprehensive decadal understanding of how we have had to address climate change along our waterways and our watersheds over the past 30 years here in South Central. I have the utmost respect for what they've said, and I'm really glad that they're on board with helping. I know they're a term contractor that helps PME out a lot, so really glad to know that that subject matter expertise is helping Girdwood right itself. And that's all. Thank you, Brianna.
Thank you, Christina. Jennifer, your hand is up next.
Yeah, actually, my questions or comments do kind of dovetail onto what Christina was saying. I wanted to know through the chair if we could ask our senator for any input or suggestions about this.
Thank you. I would like to ask this Senator Holland, and then before, if John's here on the call still, before he has to go, if he had anything also. So Senator Holland, do you have anything?
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to apologize because I'm actually traveling right now and I'm having a hard time hearing. I tell you, guys, this is a learning curve for me. So if and I appreciate the people reaching out, because that would have been my suggestion on a lot of this is, from what I understand, basically, if we are not in session, I mean, there's not a lot that you can expect from the legislature. And so if the question is the way forward on this, I would almost think it's going to, if the legislature is going to be involved at all, it would just be almost like as to backfill any funds y'all may be dispersing. But even then, I couldn't speak to that. It would probably be the Senate President Machicki would be the best source. So, and I'll apologize. Was that the type of the question that y'all were posing to me? I was having a hard time hearing.
Thank you, Senator Holland. I believe so. Jennifer, do you think he interpreted it correctly?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
like I said, I apologize. I'm the new guy on the block, and like I said, from what I understand, if we aren't in session, not a lot can be done from the legislative standpoint. And I think it's a good way forward to do the letter to the mayor or the municipality and a letter to the governor separately, and just seeing if either of those are productive.
Thank you. Thank you very much. May I ask, John Weddleton, are you still on the call? I don't see him anymore. Okay. Mike, your hand is up.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to actually, I think what I'm hearing is what I was going to suggest. I'm going to make a motion that we as a board write a letter to the mayor explaining the situation and formally requesting so either an additional funding or additional mechanism to get funding through an emergency declaration. I don't know if my sense is we should do that first and then see what the response is rather than go to the governor and the municipality simultaneously.
Okay, I hear a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any further discussion?
This is Guy. I agree with Mike. We should, we need to get in touch with the municipality and at least inform the governor that, we're going through this process, or give him a heads up at some point. Maybe not request funding at this time, but possibly, they may know this is going on. I don't know, if they do or not, but it would be good to, I think it'd be good to notify the governor's office just to let him know that we are pursuing this path through the municipality.
Okay, thank you, Guy. I also wonder if we could give ourselves a timeline, and if we don't hear anything by a certain day, then we follow through with a letter to the governor with a separate idea. But Mike, your hand was up, and now it's not. So any other comments? Go ahead.
I do have another comment. Yeah, I'd recommend we write something as soon as possible and send it directly to obviously the mayor primarily. We would obviously copy our representatives both at municipality and state level, probably the Senate President as well, and the other entities which would be involved at the state level, so EOC, both municipal and state EOC, and probably the governor's office as well. And I think if we can do that, we can probably put this together and get it done within a day. We should send that, and then we can discuss if we may have received some responses by the time we have our GBOS meeting on Monday. So we can discuss it further then.
Yes.
Or discuss the outcome of that letter. But I would recommend we get this done ASAP.
Right. Okay. Anyone else comments on the motion, Jennifer?
Yeah, Brianna, I liked your idea, and are you comfortable with saying we'll revisit it on Monday, but then if we haven't heard, are we going to make some decision Monday on how much longer we're going to give it?
Well, the agenda for Monday, we could, well, it's been posted, but there's always the option to amend it. But I think if we get it out tomorrow, there's one business day before Monday, and then all of Monday before our meeting. I like what you said. I think that would be good to have that open formal meeting on Monday also, because it will be brought up, at least the funding and the storm.
I like your idea of wanting to make sure. Oh, sorry. I just want to say that I like your idea of trying to make sure that we keep doing something, or that we have another plan B if plan A goes nowhere and into just radio silence.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments for the motion? Okay, I don't hear any. Kyle, can you do a roll call vote?
Point of order, you haven't gone to public comment.
That's true. Okay, I don't see any other hands from the board. Are there any comments from the public?
This is
Or
Christina.
comments?
May I make a comment, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Brianna. My recommendation to the author of the letter is that you demonstrate that Girdwood has, from a financial perspective, tended to its own garden as necessary, because of the bonding, that nobody's going to pass a bond in Anchorage for Girdwood because they think we're just this really rich little town. But I would also, because of the current CFO and the fact that he walked into a bunch of CARES Act money that he has to get reimbursements for, and the documentation may or may not be right there for him to do, that we make this decision for him and the mayor as easy as possible by putting forward the demonstration that we do have very competent municipal staff in Margaret and Kyle helping us, but that we've already gone to the trouble to document in the separate areas that where we've made those repairs. So that could be boiled down into about 4 sentences, but just basically let them know that from an administrative burden concerns, that we can assuage any of that and make it easier for them to declare a disaster, should that be the lever of finance that they're able to pull to ensure that we have longevity with some of our other projects in the service area. Thank you.
Thank you. Tried to write some of that. I see Lori Lokovsek had her hand up. Lori, are you available to make a comment? Cannot hear Lori, but I see your hand is up. So.
I think, Lori, you have your mute button on.
Okay, there we go.
Yes, hear you.
Old history here. I'm a local resident, been here for a long time. I was here in 95, 26 years ago for Typhoon Oscar. And I don't really have a lot to add. I think you guys have your act together. But the one thing that we did in a hurry with the GBOS was they all wrote a resolution and sent it to the mayor's office. At the time was Mystrom, and Tony Knowles was governor. Same resolution, basically just changed with the titles. And what that provided was a united front to say, help, we need some help. And what that emergency proclamation did from Mayor Mystrom and Governor Knowles was the expedient delivery of heavy equipment from the road project. The Seward Highway project was going on. And we got some we got a D10, a great big backhoe down here. And we started to save what we thought was the bridge, the Glacier Creek Bridge. I was running the fax machine at our house down by Glacier Creek, and the banks were eroding a foot an hour, and we had to act fast. And Tony Knowles and Mayor Mystrom responded to the united plea from the GBOS that we needed help immediately. So that's a little history. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. This isn't the same application, but I just wanted to share a little bit of history. That emergency proclamation also provided us with DOT response and all sorts of things. I wish I had a better memory. My husband would be able to speak to that. He's not here right now, but it was a gallant effort by the GBOS to really put the pressure on and have some response, because we were literally going to lose infrastructure, sewer, water, power, all sorts of things. And it really made a big difference. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and letting us share that. Mike, your hand is up. Oh yeah, I think it will. Thank you, Lori. Mike, your hand is up.
Yeah, I was going to thank Laurie for that historical context. A few people have mentioned some of the previous storms, Oscar being one, and also I think the other. It's not comparable, but the other item was the 2012 storms that resulted in damage to the airport. There's also some historical documentation around that. Well, it's not that long ago, but they did find documentation on that. And I think we're in a slightly different position this time, because we have sort of full-time staff in the municipality, and we have a road contractor who is basically available the next day at least. So and we were lucky in that we only had really one or two areas of damage. We didn't have a completely system-wide failure. We could have done if the temperature had been slightly warmer, but we got away with it really. But it's really helpful to hear when this goes well in the past. And I think our immediate response has been pretty good. It's just really the funding for it and the backfill, if you excuse the pun. The comment about resolution versus a letter, I'm not sure which is better. I think a letter is probably better because we can put more narrative in it. So I was wondering about whether to amend it to a resolution, but I think I'll stick with the original motion as a letter. We may obviously we can revisit this on Monday though.
Thank you, Mike. I don't see any other hands. Michelle Weston, do you have anything in case your hand can't go up? Okay, Jennifer?
Yeah, I just wanted to double check that as a board, we're deciding we want to just send the letter to the mayor for right now, and not, as maybe suggested by Lori, not a double to both mayor and governor.
I can restate what my motion is. So what I recommend is we write a letter to the municipality to the mayor that copy our representatives at both local and state level. Obviously copy other people in the administration, and copy the relevant state offices, including the governor. But the letter would be to the mayor, copying the other parties initially. And then again, we can discuss this further on Monday.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Is that in accordance with the second? My second agree with that.
Jennifer, I believe you seconded it. Did you?
Yes. No, I'm sitting here thinking. Sorry, you couldn't smell the smoke. No, I am just wondering if there would be any benefit to sending a second letter to the governor now, or if, yeah.
Well, you could do a second.
I don't know the politics of it.
You could do a second motion that's separate. If that saves confusion in time. But
okay, thanks. Let's leave it as is then.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, I will ask Kyle for a roll call vote for the motion.
Okay, roll call vote. Brianna Sullivan?
Yes.
Jennifer Wingard?
Yes.
Mike Edgington?
Yes.
Guy Wade?
Yes.
Amanda Sassy?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you.
Before we end this, Jerry's got to say something.
Yes, I just see that. Jerry, go ahead.
Well, I just gonna say thanks to Kyle. As everybody has said in the past, your efforts is beyond, that we expect. And I just really appreciate all the work you've done. I know how you've been staying up, Saturday, Sunday nights working on this and working through the week, and just appreciate all your efforts, Kyle. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, we could do a round of applause if it was possible for Kyle, Western, Margaret. Mike, I think your hand is up.
I'm also doing a round of applause using the icons. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I couldn't have said it any better than Jerry in terms of the thanks to Kyle and to the Western staff as well, but especially Kyle. I've called him multiple times and I know I've woken him up during the night and in the morning and all sorts of times a day, and he always answers. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify one thing. I'm offering my wordsmithing, my limited wordsmithing skills at putting the letter together tomorrow with staff.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
And the one thing I want to bring up to the board, because this will ride now as old business on your agendas, but we basically our goal deadline is November 30th from Western to get us their billing, and they're going to try to get it much earlier. But what I need from the board by the 30th is approval to use money from the emergency fund and what other funding sources we have in the form of a resolution, and then we can get that to the assembly and get the assembly to approve moving those monies so that we can make them liquid to pay our invoices worth. You know, we have the month of December to basically get our invoicing wrapped up and going. So we may likely have a special meeting with the board on the 29th. Because we won't be ready for you on your meeting on the 16th. So we will probably try to find a special meeting so we can review the costs with you and then hopefully get your approval to pay them going forward. So I just want to put that on your radar and we can talk more about it on Monday.
Thank you, Kyle. That's great to know. And look at the calendars while we process that for deadlines and due dates. Any other comments on number 2 on the agenda? Okay, I don't see any hands. And public comment I can move to then. Oh, Jennifer, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I did have one other thing that I wanted to ask the board about in terms of all this. One thing we haven't done is kind of reached out to the community or put the word out about what's happening. I mean, there was that newspaper article, but I'm not sure the Girdwood community understands about what's going on and the effect this is going to have on our budget and our reserves. And so I was just curious on what the board thought about kind of publicizing this whole scenario a little bit more.
Thank you for your comment. Personally, as someone who isn't on social media, so I didn't see a lot of the live information coming from Chief Weston and the fire department, and we didn't have what used to be called Nixle going out to tell our service area or the municipality what was going on over the storm weekend. I think that would be great since we don't have a local paper anymore, but it would have to be almost put out through all of these email newsletter of all the committees of Girdwood. That's my first thought, but Mike, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm just going to say I think that's a good idea. We definitely, as we send this out, I think we should. I mean, we could potentially get back in contact with the newspaper and have another article, but with the ADN. But I think we should publicize what we're doing now, and probably advertise Monday's meeting. So if people have questions, there's an opportunity there.
Jennifer?
So I have a couple questions in particular. I mean, one would be about a GBOS Facebook post or something through, well, as you were saying, Brianna, something first of all through the chain of people that are already following GBOS, but another one would be a general Facebook post for the Girdwood community on one of those pages about kind of what's happening. And then another option that it occurs to me we could consider related to an article in the newspaper, but a little different, would be a letter to the editor from the GBOS board about our situation and what's happening for us.
Mike,
My hand's up from last time, although
Okay.
I do have a comment if nobody else does.
you're the only hand right now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think a letter to the editor would be great. I'd like to have a response from the municipality or no response from the municipality. So I'd wait a couple of days. I recommend waiting a couple of days until we now we're actually performing a formal action. I'd like to see the response from that before we do a letter to the editor. I think a post to the community makes perfect sense to do now. And it probably has to be a member of the board rather than staff.
Mhm. Before I take the next hand, Jennifer, would you be willing to draft that and then send it to one of the chairs? The post, like the
Sure.
brief post style to, which would be the same one for the Facebook and maybe the channel of emails that go out to the meeting reminder. Okay, Jerry, your hand is up, and then I'll go back.
My thought was just that I would wait until you, like Mike said, I'd wait until you got a response from the mayor's office. Because if you happen to get a positive response, your communication to the community would be much different than if you got a negative response. So rather than start a lot of rabble rousing before you got a negative response from the mayor's office, I would encourage you to wait until you got a response.
Yes, great points. Thank you, Jerry. I'll go Jennifer and then Mike.
Madam Chair, if you're taking
Sure.
comments from the public, this is Christina Hendrickson. I'm on the phone and I'd like to put myself in queue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christina.
My
Jennifer.
hand was by mistake, so I'm not in the queue.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Jennifer.
Okay, so thanks to Jerry, that sounds great. I just wanted to clarify your that I'm happy to do that draft. I wouldn't call myself the most qualified person because I haven't been in the thick of this, but I'm happy to do the draft. And so just to clarify, I'm creating just a draft information statement for Facebook, and that draft will go to GBOS chairs and staff for approval. Is that correct? That's the sum?
I think that sounds the best. Anyone else answer that question better than me? Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. I look forward to working with you on that too. Christina, please go ahead.
Thank you, Brianna. I did draft a call to action image. It was a JPEG that I was going to text message to friends and put on the social media that we exchange with. The target demographic of Girdwoodians that I had for that are permanent residents that are within the service industry who have not had a participatory role in our budget meetings, who have absolutely no idea how much this is going to impact us financially, who have no connection to learning how much this is going to impact other projects in the future as it relates to our small businesses, as it relates to our industry, et cetera. So it's a little bit of edification in addition to a call of action, whereas I do understand the rules of engagement that Jerry recommended we follow. I do think that there is power in having full-time residents call the mayor's office, which is the general number, and leave a message and request for a disaster declaration to be considered. I think it gives weight beyond what GBOS will send. And it has been in my limited experience with this administration that the more voices, not necessarily those with standing like GBOS, that turn the tide and gain the most traction to elicit change. And I would be glad to do that as a private citizen and take that on away. I just don't want to have the GBOS think that I'm disrespecting the formal line that you're going forward with. Not at all.
Thank you, Christina. Much appreciated. I'm already curious what the image is. I see another hand flashing around. Mike.
My hand is deliberate this time.
Yeah.
I really appreciate Christina's suggestion and the work she's already done. I'd be interested in seeing it. I mean, obviously there's a little, I think we all know there's other stuff going on in the background there. So I think it might be misperceived if you're the face of the response at the moment. And I know it's not meant that way. I know it's not part of any bigger picture. You're doing it as a responsible member of the community. But I know I'm just acknowledging that there's probably some care needed.
Recognizing that, Madam Chair, if I may respond.
Go ahead.
Mike, I totally get you on that one. My signature won't be on any of it. It's just simply a JPEG that says call to action. Here's your bullet points. Call in order to and request a disaster declaration. It's nothing untoward. It's purely informational and call to action.
Thank you. I think it definitely, if we do not get a response, I think that's a reasonable thing for us to consider.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. Anything else? I know it's getting past 6:15. Some people have other meetings, and I think we've been quite productive. Is Lori's hand up again? I see it flashing, and then it goes away.
Yep.
Lori.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. First off, thank you, everyone, because you're working hard, and this is complicated, and I really appreciate your diligence. Kyle and Margaret, the GBOS, our representatives, thank you for attending this meeting. It's boring to hear the details, but I have to ditto what Christina said about Girdwood being in an alluvial plain. We have a lot of runoff. We have a lot of debris. We have a lot of sediment. We have a lot of gravel, and it all flows downhill. In the future, from my perspective, and I'm not a hydrologist, I'm just a mom and a gardener that watches it. And from my past experience, I feel that the tributaries, the creeks, Glacier Creek, California Creek, Alaska Creek, have done a lot better job at dissipating water and overflow from storms with the increased size of culverts. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, the GBOS back in Typhoon Oscar. We got a lot of money and we replaced a lot of culverts and did a lot of work. But over time, it keeps filling up with debris, sediment, and gravels. And from my perspective, I feel it's really critical that we face the facts that Glacier Creek is filling up and the other area creeks are too, and you can still enhance fish habitat and save fish habitat with mitigation efforts. That means the experts have to come down here and figure out a way to make fish ladders or do whatever. How are we going to pay for it? But if we keep having floods to this magnitude, I really believe we have to increase the circumference or the depth of our channels, if that makes sense to any of you. It does to me, and maybe I'm barking up the wrong road, but I just think preventive maintenance, Kyle's done a great job trying to replace culverts with larger scale culverts, but we have to remove the channels filling the culverts. And if you look at off the bridge of Glacier Creek, I've gone down there numerous times during various storms and just watched it. And it's the level of the gravel is filling up, and there's trees and everything else in the runway. And I just see the banks filling up so that flooding is more prominent in the future. So all you experts figure out a way to fix that. I think it's cost effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. I think your comments are on point, and you're not barking up the wrong tree. well, any of us who've lived here, I think, can get the right perspective is yours. Amanda.
And we need gravel.
Oh.
We need gravel. Girdwood
Yes.
needs gravel. We're trucking it from the valley, and Portage is, not an iffy thing. And we have a resource here. It doesn't mean that we're raping the earth and, is mining gravel. We need gravel for future projects and mitigation. So it might be cost effective than trucking it from Palmer or the valley or whatever. So that's my 2 bits. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Amanda, your hand is up.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori, for bringing that up. I know that if Paul Cruz was here, he would be saying the same thing. I've heard him say it before, and that's all I was going to say, was just that we do have a need for gravel, and that makes a lot of sense to make the channels deeper so we don't erode roads and further infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other hands this evening? Kyle, do you have anything?
Nope, I am good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I will go to the standard following here on the agenda, public comment. Persons offering public comment must state their full name and address. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person and must be on subjects not listed on the agenda. I don't see any hands. Anyone on the phone with public comment? Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second Amanda's.
Second. All right. Motion and seconded. And thank you everyone for all of your service and time and being here this evening. Adjourned at 6:24 p.m.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you again soon.